we good back there? Okay. Piece of hair in the mouth.
Okay, I would like to call to order the special meeting of the Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education. Mr. Tarnello, can you please take a roll call?
Mr. Boxler?
Present.
Mr. Roskis?
Here.
Mrs. Menser?
Here.
Mrs. Bear?
Here.
Mr. Vittori is absent. We do have a quorum.
Can you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
In case anybody gets hungry, I brought you guys popcorn for today's event.
Popcorn for the event. I like it. Okay, so we'll move on to item 2A, the approval of our agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve our agenda?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Floor is open for discussion. Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Dr. Thompson, take it away.
Thank you, Madam President. First item for your consideration is the Chartwell's contract renewal. They are our food service provider, and this is to renew our services with them. In this contract, there were minimal fee increases, and the ones we did see are smaller than those experienced with other food service companies. Many people have questions about the food that was provided during COVID, some of it negative. Unfortunately, Chartwell's did not have options available to them because they were under control of the USDA. I can tell you that prior to COVID, the feedback was extremely positive, and then it waned for sure, and certainly in some people's minds. But they were under a lot of restrictions. They could only use prepackaged food, for example. This changed during the school year to some degree, but they also suffer from shortages of products, just like we've seen all across the country. They're attempting right now to stock as high as they can. Obviously, there's certain perishable goods you can only stock so far, and they still are having supply chain issues. But next year's meals no longer will be offered by the USDA for free, so we're back to our normal guidelines. But I do want to emphasize that the restrictions under food is very, very difficult to make a food product that kids like. So for example, even the pizza has to be wheat-based pizza. There has to be a certain portion of green, reds, fruits, vegetables. You can't sell, it can only have a certain sugar content. You know, we used to be able to sell a lot of a la carte items that kids liked. Can't do that. You can't serve hamburgers and french fries like we used to. There's just so many restrictions, but they will have the bocce grills fired back up. They'll have our
I think we're doing coffee bar in the morning.
yeah, coffee bar in the morning. Our smoothie bars will be reopened, so that will help, and certainly not having all these restrictions will help. And just so you know, they're doing this for lunch for elementaries at $3.05, middle schools at $3.33, and high schools at $3.45. So awful hard to be super high quality and yummy under all those restrictions, and be profitable.
Mm-hmm. I believe that we might be doing a price increase next month, though.
Yeah, we are looking at reevaluating those prices, only because we made cuts in staff. We brought staff back so we could have more options for our kids too. So all of that is coming.
We're only talking like a quarter or something, so we're not talking like dollars here. It's just so everyone's aware. Don't freak out, price increase.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3A, Chartwell's contract renewal?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve item A, Chartwell's contract renewal.
Thank you, Mrs. Menser. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I will second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. The floor is open for discussion.
I will say we are planning to continue to monitor to make sure it does change. We'll be looking at things like meals sold comparatively from years past. We'll look at month to month, and we'll also look at a la carte sales historically versus month to month, and then run a report, and that'll be presented back to the board on November 1st, and then whatever that board meeting is in November. And then we can make some decisions based on what we see after they're in business for whatever that is, 4 months or so.
Okay. And it's a one-year contract?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Question? Okay, I look forward to that report, although I will have one on the first day of school from my children.
Yes, you will.
It's good to hear most of it is coming back.
It is. Yeah, I will say, prior to the pandemic, my children were okay with it. During the pandemic, I heard nothing but the contrary, so.
And it was very difficult.
Yeah, understood. Okay, Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
I guess it's item B for your consideration is the educational funding group agreement. The money is available to us through the federal government and the Emergency Connectivity Fund. The grant was distributed in 3 phases. The district used the first two phases to purchase electronic devices for students, primarily Chromebooks. The third phase, which in this phase will be the last phase that we are aware of, at least at this point, and the money will be used to purchase devices for teachers that do not have access to technology or they have old technology. So that is the plan.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3B, Educational Funding Group Agreement?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3B, Educational Funding Group Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I will second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Floor is open for discussion. Hearing none. Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item F for your consideration is,
C.
or I'm sorry, C, sorry. Item C for your consideration is the Centos agreement. The Centos agreement is in place to provide uniforms for the mechanics at the bus garage in addition to the uniforms we use. Centos for mops as well across our buildings, and we have found that using this service is less expensive than attempting to provide them and clean them on ourselves or in-house. The contract was put out for bid and Centos came in with the lowest price. At times, one item such as a shirt or maybe cheaper with one company, which is why we look at the total cost and not individually. You can't like extrapolate out what you want. And the overall cost savings was a little bit more than $3,000 to stay with Centos. So it was looked at, it was put out for RFP, and this is just what came out to be the cheapest overall company, and they've generally done a good job for us.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3C, Centos Agreement?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3C, Centos Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Floor is open for discussion.
Dr. Thompson, I know we went back and forth, a lot of discussion on this because there was some confusion. You went out for an RFP previously. When we were under with Centos, then you got another bid, correct, from another company?
That happened, yes.
So, but the board approved that. I just want to make sure there's no legal consequences for the board approving it. It was never executed, correct?
It was never executed because it was never signed by the board president or myself.
Okay.
So once actually there was an emphasis from the board to, much like this board I would assume, find ways to save costs. Our ops department caught wind that they could potentially save money, and they could have saved money if we would have switched at that time from Centos to a company called UniFirst. But then when it came to our attention in executing the contract, we thought, wait a minute, we could be in violation of another contract, and checked out that in fact that was the case, and legal fees to exit a contract would have exceeded what we would have saved. So we made a determination at that point that we would go out to RFP at the end of this contract with Centos and likely switch to UniFirst. But like companies do, Centos knew there was competition, sharpened their pencil, and brought their price down $3,000 less than UniFirst. If you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I would have told you it'll probably be UniFirst, but that's just not how it came out. So that's what happened. And I'm sure it would appear confusing because it's on the board agenda in, I believe, June of 2020.
I just want to make sure since it was approved, there was no legal consequence.
Not, if we would have signed it and executed it, there could have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Mine were answered via email. So with that, Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item D for your consideration is the ESC of the Western Reserve Addendum, and this contract is for one of our employees for summer school and will allow us to provide reading tutoring services that are needed by some of our students. It's IEP driven.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3D, ESC of the Western Reserve Addendum?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve 3D ESC of the Western Reserve Addendum.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Floor is for discussion. Hearing none. Mr. Tarnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item E for your consideration, again, is the ESC of the Western Reserve. It's a service agreement for programs and services. Educational service centers assist school districts with things such as administrative professional development about, for example, legislative changes, or provide professional development for staff members regarding updates to curriculum. Just two small examples of what they do. ESCs also assist with flow-through money that comes from the state, which we've talked about previously. The Educational Service Center, the Western Reserve, is in Lake County and serves both Lake County and Geauga counties, and this contract will allow the district to engage their services.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3E, ESC of the Western Reserve Service Agreement, Programs and Services?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3E, ESC of the Western Reserve Service Agreement, Programs and Services.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Boxer. Floor is open for discussion.
All school districts must be associated with an ESC. You can't not be with an ESC.
So I think first I had extensive questions regarding this contract. And I want to thank both of you for getting that information to me. I think I understand it a lot more now between the 1 year and 2 year, where the funding comes from. And I just wanted to understand that this agreement does have the flexibility for us to make changes as needed throughout the year, right? That was one of the things that depending on our funding, we could, if necessary, make changes to those employees that we have on the contract, right?
We can terminate at the end of the contractual year, but remember, even with our own unions, for example, when we failed our levy in 2019,
Yeah.
19, it's very, very difficult to make cuts in the middle of the year because everything's predicated on schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So we can make cuts to extracurriculars, which if you recall we did, but it's very difficult to make staffing cuts, whether they're through the ESC or in-house, because our staffing numbers and student schedules, et cetera, depend on them. And typically ESCs are even more difficult, because many of the services are itinerant services for special education. So oftentimes, almost under no circumstances can those be cut regardless of your financial situation. So it would be difficult to make a cut in the middle of the year.
Well, I know most of the positions are completely necessary,
Yeah.
and we must have them, so.
Mhm.
Just trying to, once again, understand the contract.
Got it.
Other than that, all good. Any other questions? Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Yes. I'm writing it one ahead now.
Okay.
Item F for the board's consideration is the memorandum of understanding with WIDA. And it is a non-medical benefits. This item outlines changes in healthcare carriers, which we've had a lot of discussion about now for probably a year and a half or so. The committees have been working. Thank you to the union leaders and the union members serving on that committee. Some enhancements were made to dental and vision and life insurance at no additional cost to employees or the district. And the change was made because the cost of remaining with Medical Mutual was becoming such that employees would have to pay more for their health care coverage to maintain those same coverage levels. So last year, when the change to switch to United Healthcare was on the table, the members of all unions agreed to pay additional money to stay with Medical Mutual for one more year, and the insurance committee investigated the options available, and this was done during the 21-22 school year. This change was negotiated and agreed upon by all unions, and there are several additional items on the board agenda. Items, well, mine are K through M, but they aren't K through M anymore.
F through J?
Yeah, that sounds right. So, just in summary, we switched from Medical Mutual to United Healthcare. We're able through that process to get better dental and vision coverage for employees at no additional cost. And we saved, as Nick illustrated at our last board meeting, somewhere was about $500,000 in fixed costs, hard costs.
For a 2-year period, it was $760,000.
$760,000, and we have a cap of
They reduced the risk of 1.7
$7 million. So, meaning we can have 1.7 million more in claims without dipping into general fund, which we need. So, it's a win-win for everybody. And again, thank you, Nancy, since you're sitting here, and thank you to the rest. And we worked hard to come to this agreement, and DCW was also very instrumental in helping us get this through as
It was
well.
a plan design change, which is why the MOU is on the vote.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 3F, memorandum of understanding with WIDA, non-medical benefits?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve 3F, memorandum of understanding with WIDA, non-medical benefits.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. The floor is open for discussion. I also just wanted to thank for everybody involved, plus the teachers, because I know how difficult it can be to switch and to do things. So I'm very excited that this work was done, and it seems to be very mutually beneficial for the district as well as for those that are using the insurance. Mr. Tarnello?
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item G for your consideration is a memorandum of agreement with WESEP on sick leave. During our last contract negotiations, it was determined that after the 9th day of sick leave, it would be necessary for a member to obtain a note from a healthcare provider. That was negotiated. This item describes action that will be taken if an employee fails to obtain the letter described in the negotiated agreement. If an employee fails to obtain a note, they will be required to use a vacation day, a personal day, or will be docked for each subsequent day. And vacation is only a certain percentage of WESEP members have vacation, some don't, some do, depending on how long they are contracted for. This language was not in there, so we discovered a situation where someone hit the 9 and then said, I'm not, you can't dock me, and so it was just, well, there's not language here, so we came together, and I, again, appreciate the union leadership and quickly negotiating a fair agreement. That was the intent, but it was not spelled out in the contract, so this will take care of that issue moving forward. And the objective of this is to reduce the number of the payments we make to cover sick leave.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 3G, memorandum of agreement with WESEP, sick leave?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3G, memorandum of agreement with WESEP, sick leave.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item H for your consideration is a memorandum of understanding with WESEP, non-medical benefits. This is the same one as the previous agenda item we discussed. This is just covering a different union.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 3H, memorandum of understanding with WESEP, non-medical benefits?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to 3H memorandum of understanding with WESEP non-medical benefits.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item I for your consideration is a memorandum of understanding with OPC 159. You're just getting a tour through all the unions, and this is the non-medical benefits agreement, same as previous agenda item.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 3I, memorandum of understanding with OPC, non-medical benefits?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3I, memorandum of understanding with OPC 159, non-medical benefits.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that.
Floor is open. Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item J for your consideration is a memorandum of understanding with OPC 163, and that is, again, non-medical benefits, same as previous agenda item.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3J, memorandum of understanding with OPC 163, non-medical benefits?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve 3J, memorandum of understanding with OPC 163, non-medical benefits.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item K for your consideration is administrators and adult nursing instructor salary schedules for 22-23 school year. This item is an update to the salary schedule of the staff members. It reflects the same increase that the union members receive for the 22-23 school year. They're not covered by a union. That's why they have to be approved separately.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve item 3K, administrators and adult nursing instructors salary schedules for 22-23?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3K, administrators and adult nursing instructor salary schedules for 2022 and 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item L for your consideration is the administrative and exempt employee compensation plan and schedule of events. benefits. This item is updated and voted on by the Board of Education and outlines the benefits described in the administrator's contracts. The pay increase follows that of the unions, and there is actually a reduction in benefits in terms of how vacations are paid out.
They're not accumulated.
They're not accumulated to be paid out.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 3L, administrative and exempt employee compensation plan and schedule of benefits?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve item 3L, administrative and exempt employee compensation plan and schedule of benefits.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item M for your consideration is the Student Code of Conduct and related policies. This item describes in detail the consequences that students will be subject to if they engage in a fight with another student. This is so that parents will be well informed and will know ahead of time what is expected in our schools. If a student fights, they will be subject to items such as automatic suspension and removal to an alternative school setting. All Willoughby-Eastlake students have a right to an education that is free from disruptive behavior, and our hope is that using these stronger consequences will help eliminate this behavior. So very specifically, what it states in our handbook, 6 through 12, first fight is automatic 5 days out of school suspension. Second fight is automatic 10 days out, recommendation for expulsion. And that is the leverage that I will use to place students in the in-pace.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve item 3M, Student Code of Conduct and related policies?
Madam President, I will make a motion to approve item 3M, Student Code of Conduct and related policies.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Menzer. Discussion? Okay. And then this will be updated, and all the parents have to reread it and acknowledge it at the beginning of the school year.
Sign. They'll be in newsletters, and I'll do a check-in with the soup about it as well.
Okay.
Are these posted somewhere in the schools as
They're
well?
posted in every school.
Okay.
Can I add something? So we hand out, the kids get planners at Willoughby Middle, and when we print planner, the Student Code of Conduct is inside every one of the planners that we give out at Willoughby Middle.
Dr. Thompson, is that district-wide?
That's district-wide.
Okay, good. Just making sure. I think that's wonderful because it's important for them to know.
Yeah, they will know, and the principals have been instructed to announce frequently and often at the beginning of the year, to include in their grade level meetings, et cetera, teacher meetings at the beginning of the year. I don't want anybody to not know.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? Mr. Charnello?
Mrs. Bear?
Yes.
Mrs. Menser?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mr. Boxler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
We'll now move on to item 4A, adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve 4A to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Madam President, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Boxler. I appreciate everybody's time this evening.
I didn't even get to open the problem.